Good afternoon from Titania's realm at Sacred Space. It's Friday, the 19th of December 2025, and the time is 5:44 p.m. Shabbat Shalom to those of you who practice or loosely attenuate to the Jewish faith. It's Friday night and it's a very spiritual night, and tonight when the sun goes down it will be the 6th night of Hanukkah. So Hanukkah's almost over for another year, only 2 more nights to go. But I had a lovely time. My friend Robin came and visited with her little dog Coco, and her partner Peter he didn't come, but we chatted because they were fighting through traffic, so we had a chat before she arrived, which was lovely. And he's off celebrating with the boys and having a lovely Christmas festival, which is nice. And we had a lovely time, Robin and I. She's a lovely woman, and she always takes photos of me with little Miss Coco, and she always teases me. She said, people say Coco's smiling, but dogs don't smile. So then she took lots of photos, and in each photo Coco's smiling ebulliently. And I said, of course she smiles. She smiles all the time. So it was actually quite delightful. And we haven't caught up for quite a while, so we had a good long chat, and it was just very, very lovely and convivial. And the mama tea doesn't feel quite so lost and abandoned and neglected, because it's all a headspace anyway. I have beautiful friends in my life who, do come to see me or invite me out from time to time and enjoy my company. So I'm very blessed and very grateful and very fortunate and very happy mama tea. So the birdie boys have been in here very quietly because they were a bit scared of little Miss Coco, and it's nearly time for them to go to sleep, but I think we have probably another half hour or so before it gets really dark. I don't know, it might not be that far off, but I thought I'll read us a story, and then the birdies can feel like I'm actually in here with them. Bye, Kermie. They're really contented though and happy birds, so that makes me happy too. So I thought I would continue on reading Boudica, or Amanda Scott has pronounced it Boudica. There's various pronunciations of it. Boudica, Boudica. So I thought I would continue on reading. Actually, before I get started and get right into it, the best intentions in the world, people of Earth, I better get another glass of water, because I know what will happen. I'll sit here and I'll get thirsty and I'll get agitated and I'll get twitchy and I'll get tetchy and I'll drive you all mad. So I'll be back for a moment. I'm really addicted. Are you the prettiest boy in the whole known universe? Are you Kermie? This is now you take notice of us. Really, Mama G? My gorgeous boys. Right, I made myself a cordial and soda water drink. That will be a bit refreshing. I'm a bit sick of plain water. It's good for you, but it gets a bit boring after a while. And I've had too much tea. I mustn't drink any more tea today because it will upset certain organs in my body. So, enough caffeine and tannin today. Just going to close that blind a little bit too because the sun's reached that magical angle where it slammed you right in the retina. Mama T doesn't like being slammed right in the retina, you understand? Right. Chapter 4. Valerius stopped the messenger. Boudica killed him. A sedge grass swayed over the dead man's face, pushed by the dawn wind. A skein of geese mourned him thinly, forlorn echoes strung across the grey sky. Where he lay at the edge of the marsh, the air was fresh with spring and the hope of freedom. Some days you can almost smell it, can't you? Freedom, people. Freedom. To the east, where the watchtowers smouldered, greasy smoke stained the skyline, delivering the smell of charred bodies onto the wind. Valerius lowered the body down from the horse, taking care not to break the seal on the message pouch. The messenger had been young and his face held no fear. He had believed Valerius a friend, for the red cloak that he wore and the officer's plume in his helmet and his easy urbane soldier's Latin that had offered security and a better route past the wet fenland with the marsh to one side and forest to the other, and only an open, unprotected pathway for a man alone to ride through. He had been terrified because all 5 of his companions had died to Dubornos's sling stones and Ardakos's bear spears. I wonder what a bear spear, maybe made out of bear bones? Bones of bears, not bear, B-A-R-E, bones. Finely honed bone can be an almighty weapon, though. And he was alone and in need of a friendly face, calling his welcome and his relief. He had not known death was close until it claimed him. It's usually how it goes, isn't it? Gets you sometimes unsuspected. Nasty business. War. His soul had departed quickly, called to freedom by the cries of the geese. Thinking about that, it's very symbolic, isn't it? Just a quick segue, but when King Edward VIII, which was, you know, the one that married Wallis Simpson, the son of King George and Elizabeth, rightful king to the throne, by the way, but he abdicated his role because of the scandal of marrying a divorcee, and 20 years later that didn't seem to be such a scandal when his nephew did pretty much the same thing. He got punished severely, and 20 or 30 years later it was no longer a big drama. It's ironic, isn't it? The sacrifices people make that pave the way for other people's scandals to suddenly be legitimised or minimised or somehow lose the sharp edge or stain of disdain. Very fucking ironic. But anyway, the segue's not about that. It's about when he died. He died in a Paris apartment, one would expect, a very opulent palace apartment, given his former, his former claim as the King of England. And anyway, the story goes, I don't know, I wasn't there, but I read about it, and I can only presume there was a fair bit of truth in it. His servants or his staff were actually quite amazed, because at the point of the death, which apparently it's a traditional thing with the Windsors, or maybe it dates back to the Tudors, I'm not quite sure, can't remember how I read it exactly now. But at the point of death of an actual anointed king, even though he'd abdicated and King George V came to be the King of England in his stead, at the point of his death, thousands of, don't hold me to it exactly, you'll have to Google the story yourself, but I think it was swallows came throwing themselves at his apartment bathroom window, which I think must have been the nearest window to where he was lying dying, and they were just hurling themselves at the window trying to get into the apartment to pay him some kind of supernatural homage. But apparently it's quite recognised thing that a king in the English throne has the birds come for them when they die. There was no mention of that when Queen Elizabeth II died, however. No mention of that at all. So maybe, I'm just throwing it out there, I might be repeating an urban legend that it's been perpetuated. I may be perpetuating an egregore or an urban legend. But somehow, if you come to my channel, you know how much I love the occult and the mystical, the supernatural and the paranormal. And somehow I like the idea that the birds came to pay him homage. Because I myself am a bird lover. My birdies kind of like me a bit. You should have seen my two crows this morning. I cleaned their little bath because it needs to be cleaned. Actually should be cleaned every day, but sometimes it takes me, 2 days to clean it. And but I'm conscious that they're drinking out of it, so the water needs to be cleaned regularly. Anyway, they were swaggering around watching me, and I thought, their water needs changing. They mainly just bathe in it. They don't really drink it that much because I provide them other drinking sources, like they have the fish pond at the front, or they have the 2 little bowls of water I put out for all the wild birds. But they do drink out of that bath, so that's why I got a bit concerned. It needs to be freshened up. So I cleaned it out and I got the hose, and it was a very hot day again today. And I was half filling it up with water from the hose. I looked down and there were the 2 crows swaggering and looking at the water and looking at me, and crow version of smiling, letting me know that they were appreciative that I'd freshened up the water for them. And then they did this little swagger around and looked at me again as if to say, "You're a day late, you should have done it yesterday." And I nodded, I hear you loud and clear. They really bossed me around, even the wild birds. But I don't mind at all because, I live here in sacred space, Titania's realm, and got to look after the little ones that can't speak for themselves and can't exactly turn on a hose and a tap and get their own water out of a hose. They rely on me with my opposable thumbs and my arthritic fingers to provide them with drinking water and swimming water. But I could tell they were grateful and happy. They let me know in their no uncertain terms doing this little birdie swagger. And then when Robin arrived with little Miss Coco, who's part Shih Tzu and part poodle, and is actually a very tiny little curly little poodle looking little dog, Turkey arrived and he was very upset. I was trying to figure out why he was so upset, because, you know, I don't normally have dogs here. And then little Miss Coco ran up the back of the garden, you know, exploring and sniffing. But when she went to go towards his mound, he went insane and was like chasing after her. I said to Robin, oh, he's frightened because she's a dog, that she will kill his little eggs that are buried deep in the mound, incubating, still incubating, by all the gods. He was very protective, and so I'm running past with Coco going, it's all right, BB, we're not going to hurt your babies. Coco's not going to eat your babies, everything's safe. He chased us all the way down to the bottom of the garden. And fair play too, that's his job, protect his offspring. That's what fathers are supposed to do. Don't get me started on my fucking fathers, but multiple fathers, stepfathers, godfathers, the whole bloody lot of them. But we won't think about that because it's a lovely day and it's Hanukkah. But I was so proud of BB actually. I was like, Robin, we better keep walking. He will attack little Coco. He's protecting his young. Coco was completely oblivious. She was not the least bit interested because, you know, she's well fed actually. She's just happy to be with the mama tea. I've had lots of Coco kisses today. It's been lovely. Right, where were we? Oh yes, I segued at geese. Right. Behind nearly 5,000 warriors of the Iceni, with a smattering of others from as far north as the Caledonii. Caledonii is the ancient name for, come on, you know, Scotland, and as far south as the Douro Triggers, I have no idea where that might have been, stepped out of the forest. Douro Triggers, Durotriges. I don't even know how to pronounce that word. Dear goddess. Anyway, stepped out of the forest. Their line extended from the marsh to the far horizon, a glitter of bright blades and spears and round painted shields, and the occasional shimmer of cavalry mail or legionary armour stolen from other dead men of Rome. Pardon me, it's the carbon monoxide or whatever that makes the bubbles in drinks. It's not actually good for you, people of Earth. I had to cut down on soft drinks some years ago because it's not good for you. Not good for you. Too much of it anyway. Apart from the fact that it can be fattening, it's the actual carbon dioxide. Anyway, it's the carbon in your bloodstream. Oh, happy thoughts, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. We'll carry on Merry Saturnalia too, depending what your Merry Kwanzaa, depending what your cultural background is, people of Earth. We're all in this human experience together, and this is the end of the year where we all celebrate something, regardless of where we come from. It's winding down for the year. Right, they were as diverse as any group of warriors. Their hair was red gold and bronze, with the occasional dark throwback to the ancestors, and braided high at the temple, and left without ornament to know they had not yet, to show they had not yet killed in battle. You know that sun's still peeping through and slamming me. Hello, sunshine. You are my sunshine. my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are grey, but when you slam my very sensitive retinas through the slats of the blinds, then we'll have to call it yet another day. Or words to that effect. I'm making it up as I go along. I know, back to the drawing board. I almost held the tune there for a while though. Progress. Progress. People are there. Don't ever make me sing for my supper though. I'll probably get killed for being tuneless and hapless and useless and feckless and oh, smallest violin. Delete, 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 delete. Right, where were we? Their hair was braided high at the temple and left without ornament to show they had not yet killed in battle. So they were fresh, very fresh and untested. They have not yet learnt the metal of their metal. Dear goddess, some of them learn it, but they don't live for very long too. Those were hard times. Every epoch of our human existence is hard. Do you want to see what I made the other night, last evening? It's out of focus, isn't it? It's out of focus and it's upside down. Let's flip it over. Magic. And on here we'll go the eye, just an eye to represent, you know, the all-seeing eye. And on the inside, I already started scratching it out, will be the yin and yang symbol, which I will try to engrave, because this is going to get cast, so all these engravings will probably get lost when I cast it in the delved sand, people of Earth, but I'll still have the shape of the ring, so I can still engrave it afterwards. But I just want the model to be right for some mad reason, proving some point to myself. But anyway, on the inside will be the yin and yang symbol and the word sacred space. I'm copying a ring that I had some years ago that I lost just after my life-threatening near-death experience, gallbladder surgery. I've got the know-how to make another ring similar. It won't be exactly the same though, but I'll have the same, you know, ornamentation and symbols on it. So there you go, people of Earth. I'm very happy about that actually, like a child. But it won't look exactly like that because I'm going to round it off a bit more. Although I could leave it like that and just put the eye in that little oval and I could. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as the other ring I used to own. The other ring was made out of aluminium or stainless steel. It was some kind of model actually. And but I loved it, and I bought it in a shop, in a second-hand shop in Byron Bay for $12. And as soon as I saw it, Jared was with me. I said, I have to buy that ring. He said, why? I said, it says magic and sacred space, and it's got the all-seeing eye. It's a talisman. And I wore it for 6 months, and then I actually lost it walking around with Beauregard. I lost it somewhere around the neighbourhood, but of course never saw it again. There's a high school near me, and if it was on the grass, some kid probably would have picked it up. So I'm not upset about that. Things run their course, and you actually lose things for a reason, but I felt the urge to make it again, this time by my own handicraft, making my own ring. Because that one was already made and decorated beautifully. So I'm happy about that. Miss 5, my inner child, wants what she wants. And if I can afford it, I like to give it to her Fortunately, she doesn't ask for, 10-carat diamonds or anything too bloody opulent, people of Earth. But, what have we got going on here? What are my boys doing? You haven't done any playing today. You've just sat there like two little pidgey birds. It's so quiet today. Is it the heat? My pretty boys. Come on then, my little darlings. I'm going to put them in the garden tomorrow if it's another nice day. It was a bit too hot today. It was sweltering, so I kept them in. Right, now where are we? Very few wore helmets. The Boudica did not and never had done, and they had gathered in her name, answering her call, holding fast to the belief in her immortality, even when the rumours spread of her sickness and closeness to death. It's amazing the power of a good story that can convince hundreds or thousands of people that someone's like a god or immortal. It's a bit silly when you think about it, but if people put their faith in you, they can really run with it sometimes. See also Jesus Christ and Joan of Arc as other examples of people that became so famous and so worshipped that they became their own kind of god or goddess. Something to think about. It's not something I aspire to, by the way. Don't get any weird ideas about me. Please don't. Really don't. I'm joking about that. There are a few people in my life who have some very strange ideas about me, but that's because I've been known to achieve a few very strange things, and they're not my fault, people of Earth. They're the gods. So nothing I do is done under my own merits. Attitude is everything though, and sometimes it's just my attitude. But anyway, let's carry on with the story. She was not dead. She had killed a man cleanly in sight of them all, reversing in a single stroke their waning hope of the past 13 days. That stroke may have lacked the brilliance that had always set the Boudica apart from the greater mass of warriors. But there were few amongst those watching who had the experience to understand the distinction between the mundane and the truly great, and fewer still who could see such a thing in the flash of a knife across a man's throat. Valerius was one of those few. My nose is itchy. But he had already seen all that he needed in the brief contest by the gods' pool. The details of that were something private between them, shared only in outline with those of her closest circle who knew already the reality of what Boudica could do and what she could not, which was the greater part. The challenge for all of them was to find ways to keep her alive until she could find her way back to who she had been, or it became clear that she would never do so. They had not yet spoken openly of that. Oh, I'm so sore lately, and I don't know why. I'm just going to put the light on, people of Earth. I'm going to have to go swimming, I think, loosen up all my joints and float and take away the gravity that's pulling on me. gravity, gravity. The warriors of the war host who saw exactly as much as they were shown. Why do I feel like I'm sitting lower than usual? Just, now I'm really low. Let's just get up. Wait a minute. Ah, that's better. Don't feel like I'm a dwarf on a high throne now. Much better. Right, here we go, people of Earth. The warriors of the war host, who saw exactly as much as they were shown, stood in silence at first, in honour of the dead, and the gods' gift of the morning and the shedding of blood that signalled the start of the war for which they had gathered and trained. Then a woman among them raised her blade in one hand and her shield in the other, and set up the war chant of the Boudica that the oldest had heard first on the banks of the great river at the time of the legion's invasion, and the youngest had only heard sung quietly in secret through all the years since. Another one that's twisted out of shape. Things you notice when you're reading stories on YouTube, people are there. It's a bit odd, isn't it? Let's find my pliers. Wrong ones. Where are my long pliers? There they are. Can't stand when things don't sit right. Drives me bats. There's no reason why they shouldn't be sitting right. Right. Odd. They need stronger hooks too. Maybe I won't play with them right now. I'll just make it worse. I love these. I haven't worn them for a long time. They're Levi, made from Levi and Salomon spoon handles. But you can't see it. You can't get close enough to the camera. But I call them the Green Man, because there he is. There he is, people of Earth. The Green Man. Protector of the forests. What's happened to his nose? His nose is fine. It's just optical illusion. He's got a long beard. Guardian of the forests. Right, and carry on. The sound grew and grew and spread out across the marsh, silencing the wind and the geese, and became a roar that might have reached north to the 9th Legion and south to the veterans of Camula Dunum, which later became London, I believe, and west to the Roman governor of Britannia in his assault on Mona and all that was sacred. Under the wane of it, Boudica said to Valerius, I should talk to them. Could you find a way to help me mount the horse? It'll be easier from there. What'd you do, fidgety bumps? You're finally playful. The messenger's horse was a pale strawberry roan, trained to stand where its rider had fallen. It remained steady while Valerius knelt at its side and spread his officer's cloak wide and removed his helmet with deliberate ceremony, and offered his knee for Boudica to mount so that it looked to the watching warriors as if they had arranged it ahead to show how Rome must kneel before the Boudicca's greater strength. They cheered for that as well and gave her time again to catch her breath. She looked better mounted. She had always fought best on horseback. The morning sun caught the copper of her hair and set light to it, so that even sick grey and slick with the sweat of old fevers, with the mist leaching the colour from the air and a pale washed horse beneath her, she shone as the watchers expected. Lovely red hair. I was born with Titian red hair, but it fell out. I was bald for 6 months and then it came back blonde. This isn't my natural colour of blonde. I'm actually quite grey underneath. But, and mousy brown. But there's a lot of grey in the top and the sides now. But, you know, I'm a 60-year-old woman who survived everything that was thrown at me. And have to take a little bit of pride in that. But I didn't do it. It was ordained by the gods that I should live this long. So, gratitude to the gods and the ancestors that love me, and gratitude to true heartfelt friends and loyal friends and faithful friends. Gratitude to my beautiful pets who sustained me over the years too, in dark and lonely times when I couldn't trust even in humans. I was blessed in other ways. It is what it is, people of Earth. What followed had not been prepared at all, except that each of those who had cared for Boudica had imagined something like this, and had prayed for it, and had come ready to act if the moment allowed. Thus, Hermide lifted up the talk of the Iceni, which had been saved from the procurator's looting, and set it about Boudica's neck so that it, too, caught the sun and blazed gold, marking her as royal, and more than that, lending her the strength of her lineage. Ardakos gave her a new shield, painted with the mark of the serpent spear in red on Iceni blue, and Valerius passed her the blade with the serpent spear hilt that they had retrieved from beneath Boudica's altar. They really hold her in high honour, don't they? Even to be gifted the blade from the goddess herself. It's just amazing. Warriors of the war host, you who have gathered in the name of victory. She could not be heard by the full 5,000. No one expected that. But she sent her words to reach the oath holders and spear leaders and clan chiefs who stood as of right in the front lines of the massed host, and could be relied on to repeat her message, word for word, to their followers. As you know, I don't know why my nose is so itchy today, dear goddess. As you know, The legionaries of the 20th have been ordered out of Camulodunum and are marching west to aid the governor's war against Mona. The time is ripe now to attack the city that Rome claims as her capital in our land. We have only to rid ourselves first of the 9th Legion, the legionaries who wait in their fortress to the north, and will move swiftly to attack us at the first word of insurrection. It was better than Valerius had dared hope. He stepped back from the horse and listened to a woman who was barely fit to fight a full day's battle, nevertheless speak of leading 5,000 untrained warriors to war and victory. And I closed my eyes there briefly because we know how that goes. If you're not really a trained warrior and the gods are not exactly always on your side, pass from this dimension into another one rather prematurely than one had hoped for people of Earth. War is hell, all war, up to and including even our courageous, heroic Boudica who fought a righteous war. Do not come raping our daughters, stealing our lands, killing our men. Motherfuckers. But there's a high price to pay for victory over oppression. Barely fit to fight a full day's battle. Nevertheless, speak of leading 5,000 untrained warriors to war and victory as if these two were certain. Who, better than that, was able to reduce to a few crisp, God-filled sentences the arguments of half the previous night, and make them sound as if they were planned policy, as if Kunomar's act of madness and the risks that followed from it were part of a strategy set in motion months, if not years, in advance. My son Kunomar, who had the honour to strike the first blows of this war. She stretched out her arm, and Kunomar came to stand beside his mother, a tall, lean youth, made taller by the hand's length of lime-stiffened hair set straight up from his head. He wore only a waist skin held in place by his knife belt, and the marks of the she-bear were freshly painted about his body. We call those sorts of things totems. Who's we? Those of us who still mark our bodies with tattoos or scarifications or other symbols of warriors who fought back death itself a multitude of times. You understand? Even for those who knew the ways of the bear cult, he stood apart as something new and different, or possibly very old, which was worth more. It's interesting, you know, after I was dancing at Lefty's, when was that now? About a month ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks, I can't remember exactly now. But when I walked back to my car, there was what looked like a bear and a gorilla looking down from the clouds. So, and here I am, only a few short weeks later, reading about bear cults in connection to Boudica. It's a bit odd, isn't it? The spiritual synchronicities and the connections and the tapestries of stories that we weave across time and space, by the way. Powerful stuff at times, or inspiring. He stood apart as something new and different, or possibly very old, which was worth more. The loss of his ear was part of that difference. He was no longer beautiful in the way he had been when Valerius knew him in Rome and Gaul. Then he had been a bitter, clumsy child, living in the shadow of his father's genius, forever striving to match the legend and not the reality. His beauty had been of the fragile kind that graced the Roman salons, so that only those who wished the best for him could have said there was a promise of strength at the core. Just going to close this window down too. Blind down. Valerius had not been one of those, and Kunomar's growth to adulthood had been the first of several surprises that had greeted his return to the Iceni. The youth who had faced him in the meetings of the past month, who had returned the night before to the council circle reeking of smoke and victory, was not the child he had so pitied on a beachhead in Gaul. The voice that had spoken against him until dawn was no longer strident with the arrogance of youth, but the clear product of Mona's training, incised with the clarity of rhetoric. And more than that, somewhere in the harsh mountains and caves of the Caledonii, the elders of the she-bear had taught Kunomar patience and a quiet, prideful dignity, that had given his words, a weight beyond his years. He stood now beside his mother in front of 5,000 warriors, many of them older by a decade, and that same dignity let him bear the disfigurement of his wounds as if they were honour scars. His missing ear flowered in its ugliness at the side of his head, and his back was a mess of part-healed wounds that would never knit cleanly, and even so, there was not one amongst those watching who did not either wish him as a son or desire him as a lover. We have languished 20 years under Roman rule, forbidden to train our warriors in the arts of battle. Thus we must find ways to confront them that allow the youths among us to learn from the battle hardened. Above all, we must not yet face the legions in a full-pitched battle. To give them such an advantage would be to wreak our own destruction, and we... Valerius closed his eyes and gave thanks to both his gods. That had been the hardest part of the night, to sit in the presence of Kunomar and his smoke-filled victory and say over and over, "The ninth are behind us, Kamuladunum in front. We cannot allow them to come at us from two sides, and we must not attempt to take them on in full battle. We are not yet fit. We never will be." Quietly, Kunamar had said, "We are nearly 5,000, the strength of a legion and growing daily. Soon we will outnumber them. And we could be 10,000 or 20 and we would still lose. We are not the strength of a legion. We are 5,000 poorly armed, untrained warriors fighting on tales of past glory. This is what Rome does best. This is what the legions are for. They train for it from the first day of their recruitment until the last day before they retire, to stand in line with their shields locked and their gladiae in the fine gaps between them. By that they mean gladiators in plural. And walk through and past and over the bodies of those foolish enough to think they can break a Roman shield wall. Even when they have civil war, their generals do everything they can to avoid setting one legion against another. To attack them with anything less is suicide. While I live, I will not see it happen." Valerius had been tired, still caught in the feeling of the gods' pull, or he would not have said that last. Kunamar had not challenged him on it, or offered combat to the death, only stared impassively from the far side of the fire and touched a single finger to his missing ear. Even if Granny had not spoken of it earlier, Valerius should have known him in that moment as an enemy and would have regretted it as deeply. There was no time then to remake and mend a relationship gone sour, and no time either now, before the war host, to question the wisdom of the Boudica as she stretched out her other arm, saying, "Such a thing can only be done by my brother Valerius, who was once Ban, son to Luan Maccalma, elder of Mona, who sent him back to us to be our aid against Rome. He had no choice but to go to his side, to stand there with his Roman helmet on his arm and his Roman chainmail bright in the sun, and let the gathered warriors make what they would of the contrast between the Boudica's son in all the naked glory of his wounding, and her once enemy brother, who, almost alone of her council, was whole and unharmed by Rome's assaults." Nobody threw a spear at him. That much was good. A great many turned openly to spit against the wind, and more made the sign against evil. He might have stepped back but that Sigfar came uninvited to his side, and the mood of the host changed again at the sight of her, even more than the Boadicea's son. The Boadicea's elder daughter was known to them all, and what had been done to her. She smiled at him with evident warmth, as if he were a trusted friend, which was an entirely new experience. Through it she said, "Do as I do," and began to unfasten her belt. Caught, he did so, and hid his surprise when, in a gesture as laden with meaning as any that morning, Sigfar swept off her sword and handed it to him, exchanging her weapon for his. The crowd approved that, if not rapturously, then at least without the frigid mistrust of before. It was enough. They stepped apart, and Kunamar was there, this time to find a graceful way to help his mother dismount. Left alone with Sigfar and the eyes of the host elsewhere, Valerius said, "Why did you do that? You have as much reason to loathe me as Kunamar does." She tilted her head. "But I don't want to lead the war host. And I do want it to be led by someone who understands what it is we face. I love my brother and respect him as a warrior, but he is not yet fit to lead us to victory against the legions." Valerius said, "Boudica will do that." Perhaps. Sigfar was daughter to Caradoc and bore his stamp far more than Kunamar. Her hair was the colour of the noon sky sun, and her eyes the grey of new iron. And nothing was hidden in them. She was in pain and had been and would continue to be, and it was overridden entirely by the strength of her hate. She said, "I saw you fight on the beachhead in Gaul," as if that answered more than it asked. Gaul, the land where her father lived in exile, the land from which Valerius had fled, taking Caradoc's place on the boat. He said, "I think Gaul is best forgotten, which is why it never will be." Her gaze was not kind. "You were half drunk and rotten to the core with self-hate. Half the time you were riding a horse you had never seen before, and you had a child clinging onto your back, and you still fought as if the gods inspired your blade. Boudica fights like that when she has the heart for it. My father might have done once, before the Emperor's inquisitors broke him. I have never seen it in anybody else. They say you are a dreamer given to Nemain, but I think you are a warrior first, and that you were born for this." "You have lived with the legions and know them as no one else does," And now you are here, bringing all of that knowledge to us that we may use it against them. You trust me not to betray you, he said, in wonder. There are very few others amongst the war host who do. I have seen the lengths to which you will go to keep an oath. That, too, was a part of Gaul. Her horse was there, the bay colt he had begun to help her train. She mounted it neatly and swung it round to face him. If we did not need you so very badly, I might hate you. But Rome takes up all of my hating. I will do what I must, support whom I must, to rid my land of that evil. Afterwards, maybe I can hate you, if I am alive to do the hating. If you are alive to take it. She gave the salute of the warrior so that all watching could see it, and spun her horse away from him. Valerius watched the place where she had been for a long time before he broke the seal on the messenger's satchel and read the message from Camulodunum to the legate of the 9th Legion. Presently, when no one came to disturb him, he searched for and found the spare vellum and ink that was always kept in a passenger's pouch, knelt on a patch of clean turf, and began to write. The messenger lay at the edge of the path, stripped naked now as the gods had made him. Kunomar and a girl warrior of his she bare, strapped stones to his elbows, knees and belly, and lifted him up and swung him sideways. The marsh took his body, sucking it down to a cold and quiet rest. Valerius listened for help in the soft sounds of the death wash and offered the necessary prayers to both his gods that carried in the wake of the dead and might be more easily heard. A horse shifted restively behind him. A shadow crossed his path. Without turning, he said to his sister, "That was well done. They're different when you're with them. If I don't return, you said there was no risk." There was a thread of fear in the bluntness of that. He stilled the flutterings in his own belly. For Boudica, if for no one else, he could be confident. There has to be some risk, or your warriors will not believe I have offered my life in their cause. But I don't intend to die. I swear it. In you, in this war, I have found a reason to live that outweighs everything. The 9th Legion must be brought south by a route that leaves it vulnerable. That won't happen unless they are led into it by someone they trust. And if they don't trust you, if they recognize you and crucify you for twice treachery, what then? He had asked the same with the same urgency in the councils of the night. The answer was no more easily found now than then. Valerius touched the crook of his thumb to the brand on his sternum, which was his first link to the bull god. That would be Mithras. He felt no warning there, nor any intimations of death approaching unseen. The gods did not always show such things, but there was a measure of expectation which needed him to act with courage to sway the order of things. To Boudica, quite reasonably, he said, "You've just finished explaining to the war host how much honour this brings on your family. They'd tie me to a tree and throw spears at me for cowardice if I backed out now. For that alone, I can't. And I truly do think I am safe. Petilius Cerealis is legate of the north, and he has been in Britannia, potato, tomato, Britannia, less than a year. He knows nothing of a decurion who once served in the Thracian cavalry. The men he leads have been stationed north of here since the invasion, and keeping watch equally on the Iceni and on the northern tribes. They don't know any more than he does of the politics of Camulodunum and the west. I am nothing to them, just a messenger." He touched the vellum that lay drying on his knee. The message says what we need it to say. I've copied the best flourishes of the original. Listen. Valerius smoothed out the perfect, unblemished kid skin, best of the emperor's office, and read. From Titus Achaia, Primus Pilus of the 20th Legion, in the governor's absence, acting commander of the colony of Camulodunum, site of the temple to the deified Claudius, site of our unblemished victory over the native Trinovantes, etc., etc. A man promoted above his abilities and certain of it clearly to Quintus Petilius Cerealis Caesius Rufus Legate, the 9th Legion. Greetings. War is upon us. A watchtower is burning even as I write, the men within it dead and defiled. The Emperor's procurator of taxes is missing, and our veterans fear for his life. The Iceni king is dead, and his people remember who they were in the times before we blessed them with peace. We are not in a position to remind them of their folly. Camulodunum is stripped of its defences and its men. I have less than 1 century of acting legionaries and 3,000 veterans whose courage is beyond reproach, but who are no longer young men fit for sustained battle. If it please you to remember the Emperor's justice, we will offer whatever aid we can. With cautious optimism, Valerius said, "The legate of the ninth is known across the empire for his impetuosity. Men say he prays daily for the chance to march his men into battle. He'll weep tears of raw frankincense when he reads this." Frankincense is a resin that comes from a tree, is it not? Interesting metaphor. Frankincense is used in protection spells, and I think it's also used by the Roman Catholic Church in their, what are they called? Those things that they swing from side to side and burn incense in. There's a special word for it. You know, when they're coming in for the Mass to pray and cleanse the sacred space of the church or the cathedral. Oh, come on, people of earth, there's a word for it. Is it censers? Anyway, it'll come to me when I'm not struggling to remember. He'll offer his worldly goods to the gods as a mark of his gratitude. He'll have the 9th Legion at muster and marching down the ancestors' stone way before they have time to kiss goodbye to their lovers. All we have to do is contrive some visible injuries so that I look as if I've fought for my life. Could you bring yourself to hit me, do you think? And thus concludes chapter 4, and I'll come back tomorrow with chapter 5. So I wish you a wonderful, restful, peaceful, loving Shabbat. For those of you who are wild and indomitable and untamable and carefree and joyous, have a wonderful Friday night dancing, have a wonderful Saturday night dancing, live your best life, never ever let the bastards grind you down, hold your line, hold your truth, hold your honour and integrity. Blessed be from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. Bye for now.